So hi Vishishta, how are you doing?
All good, man. All good. Busy Friday, but like I said, good kind of busy. So pretty good.
Nee, that's great. That's great. I wanted to thank you for coming on the show and talking to us. And I'm
It's
really
a pleasure,
excited and
man.
looking forward to our. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So just to tell, I'm very much curious about your journey because I was going through your LinkedIn and you have done a lot. Right, I think starting from the age of 20, right, you did a startup as well, right?
I did, yes.
And yeah, you were a part of an accelerator program as well as uh, couple of venture capital firms as well, right? So it's a
Mhm.
pretty interesting journey. So yeah, please, tell us where did it all start?
Definitely, man. So I like to see it as like a journey of trial and error, really. So I'm just
Okay.
trying on a bunch of things, whatever works, whatever doesn't work, like doesn't matter. Like at the end of the day, I learned something from it. So originally, I'm from Lucknow, India. So not many
Hmm.
opportunities were there. So was lucky enough to get a scholarship to go to the University of Liverpool for my bachelor's. So I went there for my bachelor's degree. In my second year there, like I've always wanted कि मतलब थोड़ा सा था अंदर से कि business से related कुछ करना है, but I had no idea what. So in my second year there, I got an opportunity to start an events company. So along with like 10 other students from like
Hmm.
China, UK, there were like some Middle Eastern
Okay.
students. So we started this events company, and was the idea was to organize educational as well as entertainment events. So educational wasn't like that much, like so we get some like mid senior level alumni to give like CV reviews, career talks, things like that. That wasn't the big part. The big part was the entertainment side. So on the entertainment side, what we did was we partnered with the most luxurious clubs in Liverpool, जहाँ पे all these footballers and like all the rich people used to party, and we convinced them
Okay.
to, yeah, we convinced them to give their drinks on student prices. So वहाँ पे entry usually like 25-30 pounds की होती थी, and then there was a
Huh.
cover charge on top of that. So we got them to sell beers for like 2 pounds, 1 pound shots and things like that. And obviously it was a huge success. So we did
Okay.
that in my second year, and that was my first taste of entrepreneurship. And I thought, मतलब यार इसमें तो मजा आ रहा है. तो I thought, matlab, might as well, after finishing these studies, get into that. We couldn't continue with the events thing because everyone
Hmm.
had like different priorities in life. Some had to go back to their home countries. Some wanted to get a job, so वो continue नहीं हो पाया. So I thought, matlab, might as well do something regarding entrepreneurship. So came back to India, came back to Lucknow. In fact, started a food delivery business, so hyperlocal logistics delivery. Started off as a logistics provider for restaurants. So started partnering up with restaurants uh, who did not have their own logistics setup, and
Hmm.
transitioned into a website and an app. This was back in 2015, 2016. So there wasn't any like Uber Eats, Zomato, Swiggy. Like incidentally, Zomato
Hmm.
had come to Lucknow once and then went back because the market wasn't ready yet.
Okay.
So started that, scaled that up to about 70 or so restaurants in Lucknow itself. Was doing pretty well. Tried to raise my first round of funding, and was basically advised not to raise a round because I was doing pretty well at that time. So I was advised this because Uber Eats, Zomato, and Swiggy, all three of them were coming into the tier two market in the same month.
Hmm.
So decided matlab, there's no point in going head on with
Ah,
these guys when I don't have like a technological moat or anything. So tried to sell it to Zomato first. Zomato, I spoke with I think he's the current CEO with Rakesh Ranjan, Mr. Rakesh Ranjani. I spoke with him. He told me that you don't have a technical moat, so we have cash to burn, and yeah, we'll be deploying it. So, but come join Zomato and just head Lucknow's operations. So
wow.
and I got the similar offer from Swiggy, but I didn't want to stay in Lucknow, man. I thought अगर ये करूँगा तो I'll get stuck in Lucknow for a few more years, so I didn't want that.
Ah,
Exited the company to a local guy, and decided that I need to learn a lot more about business in general and like just entrepreneurship in general and life in general. So decided to go for my masters. Went to NUS and HEC for my masters. Before that, I worked for Sony Pictures for a bit, working for Sony Live, if you've heard their OTT platform. So was there for
Yeah.
about 6 8 months or so in Bombay, incidentally. So enjoyed that. Really enjoyed the time there. Learned how like all these multinationals work. Decided it wasn't for me. I love startups. So went for my masters, and during that I met Ali, who's the managing partner of Blockchain Founders Fund out of Singapore, and he came to the campus to give a talk and just tell us about a bit about a book that he was publishing. And yeah, we grabbed beers together and we just happened to stay in touch. And he, like, during my semester break, he offered me to do an internship or like a fellowship kind of a thing at his fund. And they were still in the fundraising process, building the fund. So yeah, I joined it like without thinking twice. It was COVID year, so I had a lot of time like staying at home. So during that, that was my first taste in venture capital. Really, really loved that. And by the time my tenure and my master's was over, they weren't hiring at that time for a full-time role. So I moved to this other company called Blockchain Valley Ventures, which was a Swiss-based fund. It's been acquired by a German VC called Yabio Group now, and they are their emerging technology fund now. So yeah, I was worked with them. Started off as an intern, reached the level of what was it? Partnerships lead within a year and a half. Really was really enjoying the responsibilities and everything. Was looking at companies in emerging technologies like AI, ML, cybersecurity, blockchain, future of finance, things like that. Met with a lot of interesting founders, spoke at a lot of events across Thailand, Dubai, Singapore, even India, I think, a few. And yeah, was really enjoying it. And when this acquisition of Yabio happened, they decided to size down. So they told me very clearly that we might be sizing down, so we'll be cutting down on the team. So it was completely fine and understandable because they were still meant to fundraise a bit more. So I was just talking with Shane, who's the managing partner of Punch Capital, who you know. So I was just talking to him. I just asked him. He's so Shane has been a mentor, kind of a mentor to me. That's how I know him. And
During
yeah,
your time at
during my time at Blockchain Founders Fund, so he was,
okay.
um, I don't know what they call it. I think they call them global experts. So he's been a venture partner kind of role. It's like a venture partner kind of a role. But so he helped them with some fundraising, some LP introductions, things like that. So yeah, I was in touch with Shane, and when I was graduating, I was trying to decide between getting into management consulting and VC. So I just spoke with him, and he's the guy who kind of got me into VC. Otherwise, I would have been like at a McKinsey, Bain, BCG making PowerPoints. No offense to consultants, but I just find this aspect more entertaining. It's more stimulating for me. So
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
that's how I got into venture. And yeah, I was just on a call with Shane, and he told me that yo, I'm raising a fund. Why don't you join me? And yeah, that's how I started working with Punch. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope I didn't miss anything, but yeah, happy to answer any questions.
No, no, no. So no, that's great. That's great. Again, an extensive journey in a very short period of time. I would say, right? You have done a lot of things. So, what was the thing about the punch that really basically you liked a lot? I would rather say the thesis of punch. I think it's more inclined towards supporting immigrants founders, I believe. Right. Please correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe let's talk this about this in detail. Uh, क्या philosophy है punch capital की, right? And you're still working with. Currently, you are in Bangalore. So how does even that arrangement works? What are you doing with Punch Capital? What's your role and responsibility with that?
Definitely. No, you're completely right. We are focused on first and second generation immigrant founders. So we are basically, Punch Capital is a pre-seed and seed focused fund investing in the best first and second generation immigrant founders in the US. We are focused on B2B because that's where most of mine and Shane's experience lies. And the idea behind Punch is basically there's two angles to it. So, or rather, like two pillars to it. So the first pillar is an emotional pillar where Shane and I have both been immigrants in the past. I've been an immigrant founder myself, and there are a lot of uphill battles and difficulties that immigrants face in general. Like if you go to a foreign country, you have and you plan to start a startup there, you are building essentially there, like you have no connections, no access to capital, you don't know who to talk to. Matlab, there's nothing really that you can do. And even after that, if you succeed in building a startup, then like you are much more like above than any other people or local people from that country. That's the idea in terms of the grit and the stubbornness that you have to have as an immigrant founder. So that was the idea. Shane has been an immigrant himself. He's been like, a lot of people see him as a white guy and think that ye to immigrant ho hi nahi sakta. But he's an American, was living in Germany for the past 10 years, and now he's based out of Spain. And yeah, speaks three languages. I speak four languages. We just have this in our DNA of like just trying to help out these immigrant founders. And yeah, the second pillar, like this was the emotional side of things. The second one is the like rational or number focused side of things, which is if you look at the past, 44% of the Fortune 500 have been built by immigrant founders, first and second generation, like Amazon, Apple, Google, Tesla. Like take any company, Stripe, any company, they have immigrant founders in there. 80% of US unicorns have either an immigrant founder or a key leader as an immigrant. And if you look at the future, like 77%, I think, of the Forbes AI 50, which is like the top AI startups according to Forbes, are founded by immigrants, which is a lot. Like it's more than three-fourths of these startups. And 44%, I think, or 45% of the top AI companies in the US, their founders came to the US as an international student. So yeah, this is pretty much why we want to build this. And we are sector agnostic. Like I said, we invest in only B2B because we understand it better. We try to position ourselves. So this is a fund one. So this is our first fund that we are raising. Shane has done a lot of angel investments himself. I haven't done any angel investments yet. I am planning to or hoping to do my first one this year itself. So yeah, keeping my fingers crossed. Uh, and yeah, so what was I saying? Oh yeah, so we try to position ourselves as a founder first VC. So we try to help our founders from day one. So for example, one of the companies we very recently invested in, we sourced a founding machine learning engineer for them within 2 months of our investment into them. We try to help our founders in all the things that immigrants kind of like lack support already. So, for example, we help them with hiring development talent. Like I said, we have this internal network of experts. So these are functional experts. These are like exited immigrant entrepreneurs, not operating immigrant entrepreneurs. We have Fortune 500 executives. We have top tier investors who are always there to help our founders with any ways they can in terms of introductions, in terms of like opening doors for them. We even help them with visas. We have a network of a little under 200 VCs that like both specialist and generalist mega funds that we share deals with, share founders with. Yeah, so that's essentially what we are trying to build here in terms of our mission. We've done 14 investments so far in about 18 months of our existence, out of which I'm really happy to say that 5 of them have already raised follow-on capital with top investors. So yeah, we do think that we are doing something right here, and there's a lot of value to be taken from here.
Great. So geographically wise, all the investments have been made in the US.
In the US, yes. So one of the companies that we invested in are operating in India. They're still in stealth, so I won't be able to talk much about them, but they are all registered in the US. And at some point of time, they want to be connected to the US market.
Okay, okay. So, any future focus on Indian startups building for the world, maybe, or is it not under your thesis? Not at all, because they doesn't fall under the immigrant criteria, right? I mean, if they're Indian, then
No, so like we were discussing before we started recording, when we see all the CEOs, the Sundar Pichais, the Satya Nadellas of the world, there's a lot of Indian like talent that's migrating to the West. And incidentally, the most of our portfolio company CEOs are of Indian background as well, both first and second
Mhm.
generation. So a lot of people confuse like, oh, are you investing only in Indian founders? And we're like,
That's
no,
right.
like it's just like there's so many of them that are like doing all these amazing things, and yeah, we just can't help but back them. And like it makes investing sense.
Mhm.
So for fund one, at least it's not a priority. We are only investing in US. Fund two, maybe I'm trying to build a thesis, like in my mind at least, trying to build a thesis with this bridge between East and West, so connecting India and the US. So right
Mhm.
now, if you've heard of this company, Apna, so it's a job portal, one of India's biggest
Yeah.
ones. I'm in conversations with them, and especially the founder Nirmit, because we both share this same mission, which is trying to connect Indian talent to the opportunities in the US. So we're trying to
Oh,
build
wow.
this network where we get students from like the top universities in India and do some kind of a competition where the winners go to Silicon Valley, meet with entrepreneurs there, visit all these like big tech campuses of like Google, Meta, all these
Mhm.
like campuses. They hang out with entrepreneurs, they network there, and for like I don't know, maybe a week, 2 weeks, and just get them inspired to build something, or like even if they want to move or if they want to bring something back from there to India. That's something that we are working on, but still very very early stages. We're more focused on the US market for fund one, but again, nothing says that we cannot do it for fund two. It's still an
Mhm.
open book.
Right. So, I mean, see, you're from Lucknow. You're practically a desi guy anyway, right? So, the thing is, what concerns me again, the problem that have been spoken about a lot. और अभी हम उसी की बात कर रहे थे, which is
Mhm.
the talent going outside India. ठीक है, brain drain as we call it, right? It's good, maybe till a certain point. I just want to know your views on it because for me it's sort of a concern because if the good talent who can actually bring about great innovations and disruptions, if those talent is shifting to the US, right, then how do we catch up with the US? We are already sort of 30-40 years back, right? कुछ दिक्कतें हैं इंडियन इकोसिस्टम में. Everyone knows that, in terms of the maturity and in terms of everything, 360 degree, there could be problems. So how do you look at it? I mean, do you really wish that people would talent gets inclined more towards the US, या फिर नहीं, इंडिया में रहो, आप वहां से सीख के इंडिया में आ जाओ, ठीक है, लेकिन इंडिया में डिसरप्ट करो? What's your views on that?
Yeah. Again, completely agree with the difference that India and US have. A friend of mine, she's worked both in Silicon Valley and in India. She was an investor at a mega fund, a global mega fund, and she said that India is 10 years behind of where USA was 10 years ago. So that really stuck with me because she's been like mera kind of, I haven't been around as many Indian startups, and I haven't been able to be as active in the Indian startup ecosystem. I try to be, that's why like I moved to Bangalore, but I haven't been as active. But she has been very very active. She's done a bunch of angel investments herself. She both in US and India. So
Hmm.
I think it makes perfect sense, but I don't think we should look at it from a competition perspective where we need to catch up to the US, because the world is not catching up to the US in terms of like this startup innovation infrastructure, things like that. There's a lot of like capital there, there's a lot of talent there, like we said. So catch up करने का point नहीं है. It's about try to get closer to what they are, learn from what they are doing right, because
Hmm.
this is a discussion that all happens a lot of times between US and Europe, because Europe में इतने ज़्यादा regulations हैं. Regulations make it very hard for people to innovate, and
Right.
US does not have that. US has an overflow of capital. If you are a brilliant founder, you are building something that can be a breakthrough technology in the future, you have the right team surrounding you, so people are ready to support you and help you. And that's what makes Silicon Valley Silicon Valley. Like, people, doesn't matter like if it's the CEO of a company, like if you get in touch with them, they will help you out with whatever you are doing. And I wouldn't say like they will completely like go out of their way and like not itna idealistic nahi hai, but they are more than happy to help you out or like guide you, mentor you for things like that. So that's why people want to move to the Silicon Valley, to just be around those people, get inspired, get help, get into the right rooms. That helps a lot. I think India may, if we compare that to India, is again like we said, it's comparatively very young. It's too early. I think India may, there's a lot of things that are happening, not only in tier ones like Bombay, Bangalore, but tier two maybe. I went to Calcutta, for example, for a pitching event, like to judge a pitching event, start a pitching event, and the kinds of founders, the quality of founders that I met was amazing. Matlab, I wasn't expecting those kinds of startups out of a city like Calcutta us time pe. And this is like I think late last year or early this year, something like that. So I think there's a wave, like a very early young wave of entrepreneurship that's coming out in India. But I think it's like obviously it's very early to tell how will it go. Like to be completely honest, I think government is doing a great job of supporting the infrastructure. There's a lot of grants that are happening with like different IITs, different like
Yeah.
research grants, things like that. So these are things that are like that make you feel ki India will be something. I personally am bullish on the India story, to be completely honest. But in terms of like a venture game, venture capital is a long-term asset class, right? Like if you are investing today, you are looking at a 10 to 15 year horizon within venture.
Hmm.
So 10 to 15 years, I think there you will see a radical difference between where India, in terms of startups and quality of founders, which it is today and which it will be then. I think that might also be the time where कुछ startup founders US से West से वापस आ जाते हैं India to build something of their own. Uh, brain drain, I am not like a big fan of calling it a brain drain because यार देखो एक इंडिविजुअल के पर्सपेक्टिव से सोचो, आप मेहनत करके लाइक कंपटीशन निकाल के आईआईटी जेई करके आप किसी तरह आईआईटी में पहुंचे हो, आपने 4 साल वहां पे घिसा है, फिर you get a chance to go to the US and earn like 150 200,000 $250,000 a year, तो आप क्यों नहीं जाओगे? मतलब worst case scenario, what you will do is if you don't like it, you work there for 5 years, you earn a ton of money, and you come back. I know people, like I have a friend whose friend is like working in the US and he's investing in Airbnb properties in India, and he's like opening Airbnb यहाँ पे, and he's like, I'll
Uh-huh.
retire in a few in like 10 years. So you need to look at it from a micro perspective, like individually what the people want to do. But I think like in general, if it becomes feasible to come back to India and build things, and I think infrastructure wise, environment wise, and the startup ecosystem wise, there's a lot of things that are going in the right direction. But again, like I would say, it's too early to say ki India will be somewhere there or not. uh, from an LP's point of view, if we talk about it, because I've been speaking to a lot of investors who invest in funds, I think it is a good time to invest in Indian funds, but be a little careful and selective about it. Again, look at it from a 10 to 15 year time horizon. Don't go for quick returns. Fund performances in general are very different when you compare US to India,
Yeah.
because um, again, like I said, Indian startups super young, very high risk, infrastructure उतना support नहीं करता है, talent level उतना अच्छा नहीं है जितना US में है, but things are gradually changing, and I think like they are moving in the right direction. So
Hmm.
I am again, like I said, pretty bullish on the Indian startup ecosystem, and मेरा first angel check will most probably be in an Indian startup only.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. So, I mean, now that you have mentioned about investors as well, let's sort of shift our conversation towards there, towards investor perspective. I think you have had chance to interact with investors in the USA. right?
Mhm.
And also maybe some from India. Uh,
India,
Major
not as
difference.
many, like not direct,
Huh.
sorry to interrupt. India, not as many, but globally focused on more. There have been more.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. क्योंकि मैं वही जानना चाह रहा था कि यूएस के इन्वेस्टर का माइंडसेट कैसा है टुवर्ड्स the VC ecosystem. You have told us about how helpful they are, but in the Silicon Valley and overall in the US, the founders, the co-founders who have made it big, they are very helpful. They have gone through that journey. But if we strictly talk from the investor's point of view, right? The businessmen who are putting their money in the VCs, right? How's their mindset different from people who were over here in India? इंडिया में पहली बात तो अवेयरनेस इतनी नहीं है, right? For this asset class comparatively, so there's a lot of wealth which is just sitting, or not just sitting, but have been invested in the traditional asset classes like real estate and public markets and gold and stuff. लेकिन VC में अभी तक काफी सारा पैसा नहीं है, बहुत थोड़ा बहुत पैसा आया है. These are the people who have entered the ecosystem quite early or maybe are entering now, but again compared to the population and the kind of number of business people, तो क्या फर्क है दोनों में?
यार आई वुड से दो मेजर फर्क हैं. पहला पहला वुड बी द मैच्योरिटी ऑफ द मार्केट ऑब्वियसली. यूएस में इफ यू लुक एट इट, वीसी हैज बीन अराउंड लाइक 1970s से. Sequoia has been
Yeah.
around and they've funded companies like Apple, Microsoft, like her company that we every company that we see nowadays has somewhat of a venture investment in them. So that's one thing. The second is risk appetite, I would say, because risk appetite West may, because it's a mature market, people understand it more. That's why the risk appetite is higher. They understand key venture as an asset class is the riskiest of asset classes. You'll apart from crypto, it would be one of the riskiest asset classes.
Yeah.
हाँ मैं मतलब अगर आप डोज कॉइन में शिबा इनू में डाल दोगे फिर कहोगे अरे यार मेरे रिटर्न्स नहीं आ रहे. But let's not go there. Venture is one of the riskiest asset classes that you can invest your money in, and I think risk appetite थोड़ा सा comparatively कम है. But if you look at it from a risk returns perspective, it's the most money or the highest return giving asset class. If you know what you are doing, again, you have to be very careful. Uh, I think we've spoken about this before, how sometimes people try to do angel investments on their own and it does not work out. So might as well invest in a fund who have been in this industry, who know the right people, who know how to pick out or like cherry pick the right founders. Another thing I'd like to say about venture is that if you think about venture as like a business, it's a terrible idea. Like, uh, for example, if imagine if there's a car company and they make 10 cars and nine of them just like randomly explode in the middle of the road, have like super technical issues, just like run over people, their brakes fail, they are like all of them are terrible. One of them just happens to be an amazing car, and yeah, then that car company is called the best car company in the world because one of their cars out of the 10 just performed really well. So that's what venture capital is. Like if you invest in 10 companies, nine of them will go bust probably, but the one and your ability to pick that one that could be a potential fund returner, and over that is the art of being a venture capitalist pretty much. So that's how you look at the risk in venture investing, and the measures or like the both soft and hard levers you pull to mitigate those risks. That's what VC is. And difference again, risk appetite and the industry not being mature. I think it's a good industry to invest in, nevertheless, if you have capital to invest. If you are able to say कि ये 1 करोड़ रुपए मैं अब जिंदगी में कभी नहीं देखूंगा, हो सकता है ये 100 करोड़ हो जाए, हो सकता है ये 1000 करोड़ हो जाए, बट 99% चांस है कि ये 1 करोड़ मैं कभी नहीं देखूंगा जिंदगी में. देन ओनली इन्वेस्ट इन वेंचर. जस्ट हैव दैट रिस्क एपेटाइट.
राइट. Um, and how's the structuring of a VC fund over there in USA? मतलब I'm talking in terms of the minimum investments that an investor has to make. अगर इंडिया से कंपेयर करें, it's 1 CR. ठीक है, तो ये ज़्यादा है, काफी ज़्यादा है, right? So anyone even who has that kind of a risk appetite would think twice कि यार 1 करोड़ डालो कि नहीं डालो, ठीक है? Uh, is that the same over in the US? The quantum
Yeah,
of the investment minimum?
it varies a lot, to be honest. Matlab, there are
Mhm.
funds that take 50K checks as well. There are funds that do not take entertain checks below 100 million. तो यार वेंचर के साथ प्रॉब्लम क्या है, और लाइक नॉट अ प्रॉब्लम बट इट्स अ ट्रेट ऑफ वेंचर इन्वेस्टिंग इन जनरल इज दैट इट्स नॉट एन एसेट क्लास, इट्स एन एक्सेस क्लास. And to get access to the best deals, you need to invest in the best funds. And to get into the best funds, you need to have bigger tickets to invest in. It's as simple as that. US may, especially what I've been seeing, like especially over the past few years during the bull run, there have been a lot of VC funds, and like people who are launching VC funds left, right, and center. Even though like they did not have any experience of venture investing, they might have had operating experience. Sometimes they did not even have angel investing experience. They launched a venture fund. The market was doing amazing, so these LPs, which might be either family offices, not institutions, not as much, but high net worths, but mostly family offices and even some fund of funds, they over allocated into venture. So typically, if an LP has a basket of investments, they pick key. I will invest 10% into venture, 20% into gold, whatever they might have, but they over allocated into venture. And again, venture is like a 10-15 year game. Sad to say, but a lot of those funds, those bull run funds, will not raise a fund too, because the market isn't as kind anymore. Like probably this is the hardest fundraising market in the past 25 years or so as a VC. So, and we've been told this by like other super experienced VCs. So we are seeing like a lot of funds that will die after just the fund one. They won't be able to raise a fund two. But again, if you know what you are doing, if you keep making the right decisions by getting into the right deals, like having those judgments about, okay, this is going to be big, having being in the right circles, having news about what's going on in the market, then you kind of offset that risk. Otherwise, it's not the best time to be a venture capitalist at this time, I would say.
So, why is that? Why is this? I mean, today, current scenario is the toughest time. Talking about the US, right? The VC
It's
ecosystem
the
in the
market
US.
downturn. No, globally in general, it's a
इंडिया का
market
तो खैर,
downturn.
हाँ, ओके,
यार इंडिया का एक्चुअली टर्न इतना बड़ा था भी नहीं, लाइक
हाँ, हाँ,
कि वो
राइट,
डाउन टर्न हम लोग उसको कंसिडर भी करें. तो इंडिया, दैट्स व्हाई इट्स डूइंग प्रीटी वेल इन टर्म्स ऑफ लाइक, अगर एक मैक्रो सेंस में भी देखो, लाइक देयर इज लेसर ले ऑफ्स कंपेयर्ड टू द वेस्ट. दे आर लाइक
ओके,
द West may there's a lot of economies that are shrinking on a quarterly basis. Some like UK, I think, went into recession a couple of times last year. There were fears of like going into a longer, much sustained recession in the West, but things are picking up. I would say it's getting a little better, but again, bull run, everyone's feeling good, everyone wants to invest something somewhere. They have capital, they think like, okay, this is the next big thing, this is the next big thing, NFTs are the next big thing. People over allocate, and some of those things work, some of those don't work, and yeah, that's how you end up in a downturn with a lot of VCs. Like in the past year, like last year and like 23 and 22, were not investing in new companies. They were holding a lot of dry powder, which is like they were holding a lot of their own capital for to do follow-on investments in their current portfolio in case they weren't able to raise up from the market. So it got pretty bad, but again, like it's turning up slowly and slowly. Generative AI and this AI boom has helped a lot in that, but yeah, it's not still quite there yet, and I don't think like it's going to reach those 21 levels again anytime soon. It's going to be a somewhat a flat curve in terms of growth.
I see, I see. And a lot of this money is coming to India, I believe, like the VC investments. Because I mean, India में तो at least more than I believe 70% or 80% uh, uh, the VC investments or the private equity investments are from outside India, right? And so how do they look at India? I think even if US is such a mature market, there's so much of innovation happening over there. But फिर भी they are very, I believe they're also very bullish about India. They are sort of deploying a lot of their investments here in India. So do you have that perspective as well from their
I
point of
do.
view?
I do share that perspective because India has what a lot of other countries don't, which is room to grow and potential to grow. Like there's a lot of demographics at play here. There's a lot of infrastructural elements. There's a lot of government policy elements to it. Combining all of them makes India a good investment opportunity in general. I went to Ahmedabad for a conference a couple of months ago, and I heard and learned about the things that the government is doing with Gift City, for example, and how bullish that has made FDI investors to invest in India. Um, the government, I think, is the government policies are pretty favorable when it comes to getting investments into India. And in general, like we are a young population, the internet penetration is a big cause of the bullishness on India because there's innovations happening in like the remotest of villages. गांव में like आप अगर Shark Tank देखते हो, you'll see like गांव से लोग आते हैं and they are building something like not having access to education, universities, anything. YouTube देख के सीख गए, they made something and it worked. And these are like brilliant minds that are getting platforms now and like they're getting resources to learn from because of the internet penetration. It's a younger generation which have who have typically more risk appetite compared to like older generations. And yeah, there's a lot of factors at play, but eventually all that converges into India being a good market for the next, I would say, 10 to 20 years to invest in terms of startups, in terms of like bigger companies as well, even like PE plays. I think India is and offers an attractive opportunity overall.
Okay, now that's good to hear. Uh, you have also you were also part of an accelerator, I believe, right? You're still a mentor over there.
Uh, I am. I wasn't a part of them. It's called Alchemist Accelerator. So I've listed as a mentor there.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a US based accelerator. Helps companies get a little bit of funding, a little bit of like
Hmm.
planning and structuring, and they just launch. It's one of the leading accelerators in the world after like YC and all. So it comes in the same league as I would say 500 startups, Plug and Play,
Okay.
Alchemist. All of them, like the companies are insane that come to these to Alchemist.
Right. No, so the reason I touched upon the accelerator thing is because India mein, uh, I think we need more such accelerators, right? Which is not really the case today. Accelerators hai. We would see a lot of incubators in the colleges, IITs and IIMs, ISBs. Mein incubators काफी है. The funds, that the government is deploying are deploying via these institutions, right? The incubation center and stuff. But अभी तक ऐसा कोई एक्सेलरेटर मुझे सुनने में तो नहीं आया है, that sort of going on, down the lines of a YC or Alchemist or something like that. What's your analysis of this thing, the accelerator scene in India?
That's an interesting point. I have come across a few accelerators in India. I don't remember the names. They're not super big again. जो आपने
Hmm.
बोला YC league में obviously, but fundamentally like I don't know much about the accelerator space in India to be honest. But if I think of it from a business point of view, it needs to make business sense to launch an accelerator in India, which I think would be hard given the maturity of the startup ecosystem here. Matlab, you want to run, do you want to run it as a business or do you want to run it as a philanthropy initiative? I don't
Okay.
think the Indian startup market or early stage market especially is quite there yet where you can run a successful accelerator from a business point of view. मतलब आप 10% equity लोगे, you give them funding. It's again on the quality of mentors the quality of people who can guide the younger entrepreneurs, the quality of entrepreneurs themselves to build something big, the talent that might be available, like early stage development. There's a lot of factors at play. I think it's a little too early for accelerators as a business in India, but I think in the future we can definitely see accelerators becoming more and more mainstream in India. This is
Hmm.
just my opinion. I don't know much about the space, but just from
Right.
what I think from a business point of view, it might be the reason that there are not many accelerators here.
That's interesting actually because I'm hearing this for the first time. Starting an accelerator from two point of views, either philanthropy and
Mhm.
business point of view. What would then consist of a good run accelerator from a business point of view? Kya ingredients are? I mean, if you talk about from the US, what should be ingredients of these successful like accelerator programs?
Yeah, I think like for an accelerator to actually be effective, there's a bunch of
Hmm.
things. Like ऐसा नहीं है कि accelerators नहीं है, there's like a bunch of VCs who have their own like early stage scout funds. Yeah, they have their own
Yeah.
accelerator initiatives. Like Sequoia has ARC. I don't know if they have it in India or not, but there's people who are trying that. They want to build accelerators for like super early stage entrepreneurs. But in terms of elements, I think it's like the whole ecosystem. Firstly, like if you look at YC, for example, right, they
Hmm.
have brilliant entrepreneurs that are at the in the driving seat for YC. They have
Okay.
lived through the journey themselves, like Sam Altman, Gary Tan. They have building experience, operating experience, and investing experience. Like amazing. Like if you look at their CV, you'll get blown away. Like the kinds of investments, the kind of building that they have done. So we have those people in the driving seat. Then these people get other people from like who are different YC partners. So I think like every YC partner looks at about I don't know, 1,000 companies, and they shortlist 25 or so startups in every batch that they are just responsible for, and they are
Oh
responsible for
wow.
like choosing them, for qualifying them, for mentoring them, for helping them out with introductions, things like that. So there's a bunch of YC partners who all are responsible for 25 YC companies. That's how the typical YC batch works. Now, these are also people who are experienced entrepreneurs themselves, founders. They have scaled probably billion-dollar companies, and they are working full time with YC now because of that. So again,
Hmm.
they have the experience, they have the knowledge, they have investing experience, and third element would be the quality of founders. So YC gets global applications anyway, so
Right.
that's a non-issue for them in terms of talent. But the talent concentration, I would say, is something that we can say कि एक element वो हो सकता है to bring in India, where it's like amazingly talented young people and super ambitious. They want to build something. They get into the accelerator. So अभी हम लोगों ने जैसे बात किया, they tend to move to the US either to work in big tech or start their own startup after their masters or so, or like advanced studies. So yeah, these are the elements. Then you need coordination with other VCs that can be give follow-on capital to the companies.
Hmm.
So it's a long process, and it will, I think, be completed with a few cycles. But
Yeah.
there's a lot that goes into like running a Y Combinator, I would say, and the ecosystem is as much responsible for that as the people who are in the driving seat.
Well, that's great. That's really you know insightful. Uh, so I mean, with that, we have come to an end of this podcast. But I would really love to have some closing remarks, and let's have these closing remarks on. Firstly, how you also mentioned me when we had a couple of chats earlier. You mentioned me how you want to bridge the gap between the US and the India. You have mentioned in the podcast as well. But let's take it from the investors' point of view. You also want the investors of India to give them a taste of the venture capital in the US, right?
Mhm.
To the US, so that their investment goes into the US, ecosystem. How's that
Mhm.
journey been? What have your experiences been trying to do that? from the investors' point of view.
Sure, sure. So, in terms of like investor interactions, I haven't had that many, to be completely honest.
Right.
I'm relatively new on the fundraising side. I have historically been more on the investing side, so like sourcing, qualifying,
Got it.
investing.
Hmm.
But overall, I think the US market is like very interesting, especially at this time, given the advent of AI and the innovations happening there. Um,
Hmm.
but just a message that I want to want to put out there in terms of LPs, for LPs rather, is that if someone comes to you and says that, oh, they know how to invest in AI startups, they know where this market is going, don't trust them because I don't think any VC on the face of the earth knows where this market is headed. Obviously, it starts in the US. There's a lot of innovation happening in China as well, but that's a relatively closed market. But there's going to be a lot of things that will happen in the next, I would say, 5 years or so. And some of the things will fundamentally change, like some of the innovations will fundamentally change a lot of the day-to-day interactions that we have in our, either in our personal life or in work. And that's starting in the US. So I think that's why it's a very interesting market. All investors have some kinds of theories on where this market will be heading, but again, like these theories get proven wrong every like 6 to 9 months. You have to come up with a new theory as an investor every 6 to 9 months. So yeah, I think it's a very interesting market if you are looking at it from a strictly returns perspective. If you want to be a part of this AI, I would say not a revolution, but like this boom that's happening right now. It's again, it'll take some time to trickle down to India when things might have matured a bit till then. But if you want to be part of like companies that will be potentially, I don't know, $1 billion, 10 billion, 100 billion, or $1 trillion companies, and they are already what I believe is like the next $1 trillion AI company already exists, and they are a startup. It's like a bunch of like five people working right now in a back office or like in an apartment. So they already exist, and more it's more likely that they exist in the US right now. So it's a very interesting market to keep an eye on for opportunities. We constantly come across amazing teams. So I'll give you an example. Like you asked about the difference between Indian and US startups earlier. I forgot to mention this. So I was in touch with this company that we are in the middle of diligencing right now, and they have an amazing team. Like their CTO has been at Google for like 15 years or so. He has, I think, like a little over 25 patents to his name. He's invented a bunch of different AI technologies within Google. They have a guy from who was one of the 20 researchers uh, on ChatGPT, or sorry, GPT-4, one of the 20 researchers
Okay.
that were working there. They have people who have scaled multi-billion dollar businesses. Like this is the same team I'm talking about. They have people. They have, I think, the first sales hire of Zendesk in their team. They have unicorn founders in their team as like the COOs or something like that. So that's the difference in quality that we see, or rather, I am seeing so far. And they're building like they are growing at like about more than 100% month over month in the past 8 months since they have just launched the product. So it's
Hmm.
insane, the growth that we see, the quality of teams that we see, the level of experience that they bring together to create this value. Yeah, that's been very different in my opinion, and those are the kinds of opportunities that you don't want to miss.
Right. Right. Well, that's great. I mean, I hope there's a lot more connect between on both ends, on the talent side as well as on the investor side in both these
Mhm.
countries, or even let's say other Western countries and India, more of the Eastern countries as well, right? More collaborations and yeah,
We
the
all
world
need
is
to do
one.
our part. We all need to do
Yeah,
our part.
totally, totally. And I hope we are doing our part. You're definitely doing your part. And so once again, I would like to thank you Vishishta, for taking out time and talking to us. It has been a lovely, lovely conversation with you. You have given us
Same here,
a
man. It's been
lot,
a pleasure.
a lot of insights. That's great. That's great. You have a good day, Vishishta. Thank you so much.